Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode Rocksteady, Militaria and World War II history. Today I'm hopefully gonna be able to answer the question if my grandfather was in the Dutch SS. It's a question that's been with me all my life, and therefore I traveled back to my hometown Vlaardingen. And I'm gonna take you along today, find the local history here, and definitely tell you a bit about my life and how I came up with this question if my grandfather was in the Dutch SS, and how I came up to this point today. And well, trying to find questions that I have in my hometown. It's always good to see the old places I used to go to. The snack bar, I always used to get my snacks after the late night parties. And over here is the house from a very famous actor called Clown Bassie. Almost the same name as I've got. So yeah, the town I grew up. And it's World War II history. And we're gonna find it, because there's a lot more than I thought after doing all the research about my grandfather, reading into files about the city here. Yeah, it's actually really nice to be back. Pretty much know every stone in this city up here. And yes, Vlaardingen, a very small fishing town. Still at a very important laying. So it's connected to the Rotterdam Harbor. It's part of Rotterdam Harbor. So also during the World War II, Kriegsmarine was located here. We had some boats in the harbor, and there was a lot of German activity up here. Also, it was part of the German defense lines from Hoek van Holland against a possible invasion from England. And right now we're walking to the most famous monument in Vlaardingen. It's located next to the church here. Beautiful church. Always used to go there when I was a little kid during Christmas. That was actually the police station during the war. That's why we are here at this memorial. This memorial is called the Geuzen Memorial. It was the first group of Dutch resistance fighters who got captured by the Germans, and they all got executed at the Waalsdorper Vlakte. It got opened to the Dutch Queen, I believe in 1985 actually. That's my birth year. And I have fond memories about this place, and I guess this is where my collecting of World War II started, or at least my interest. Because back here is where one time there was a commemoration, and the Queen was here, and I was a little kid, I think, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, with my photo camera, standing here between all the professional photographers. And they tried to push me away, but well, I'm a stubborn guy, so I told them to fuck off. And I still had my nice spot, so I could take nice pictures. And this is also the location where I got a card from a veteran. I believe it was an American veteran. He gave me a card with, I don't know, Florida or something, and it just totally blew my mind that there was some American guy coming to the Netherlands to liberate us, and I guess my interest in World War II started there. And the interesting thing is, I just called my mother, told her like I'm gonna do some investigations of Vlaardingen, and she told me a bit more. I had some questions about her family, so that's not my grandfather who was possibly in the SS. She told me a story about her father. During the war, that at one point he was gone for 2 weeks. Nobody heard any information about him. Besides that, he was gonna be executed. And then, you know, things start connecting. And it could well be that he was part of the group of young kids, young lads, he was 24 back then, who got captured on suspicion of being in the resistance. That's why they thought he would be executed. He was not. He was let free after 2 weeks. Yes, that's the part he for sure did not want to talk about. He never talked about that his whole life. Later on, we were well aware that many of these prisoners, they got tortured, etc., etc. So I'm actually very curious about that part. Maybe I can find some history about my mother's father and the resistance part up here in the archives. But that's gonna be for another story. For now, we're gonna focus on the grandfather from my father's side. And yeah, we're heading towards this old house now. I guess that's where it all happened. And we're gonna visit the location where I started militaria collecting. And it's all not far away. It's pretty much a small town. So a couple of streets walking, find all the places from my youth, my memories. So yeah, as you all know, I'm a military collector and seller. Started collecting when I was a young kid. Had a small break. House burned down at one point, so lost the collection. But yes, here in Vlaardingen, back in the old days, they had a very large military fair at the Lijnbaanhallen. That's where we're gonna go now. I don't believe there's a lot left of the location anymore. It was all old garbage, so they removed a lot. So yeah, that's where I started militaria collecting. It all used to be a lot bigger back there. And from here, I guess it's a 200-meter walk to my grandfather's house. So after I always used to visit the militaria fairs here, I used to visit my grandfather, go for a cup of coffee, and he always filled it up with loads of sugar, of course, because I was a young kid. And showed him my new pickups about the war, World War II, etc. And there's one moment that always stays with me, still does to this day. So at one point I visited him after a military affair. Of course, the Germans had a not so good reputation in the Netherlands after World War II. And we had some common bad names for them. The moffen, it's called in Dutch. I don't know how to translate that. Anyway, it's kind of a swear word. And when I was visiting my grandfather, I was telling these words about the Germans. And at one point he said, "Boss, you should not use these words, because you should remember very well, and I'm going to tell you once, not every German was bad, not every German was a Nazi." So I'm like, okay, you know, you're my grandfather, you're a young kid, so you assume he's right, and it always sticked with me in my mind. And then, unfortunately, he passed away at a relatively young age, 67. And yeah, that broke my heart really. I had a really rough time on the old man passing away. And but yeah, that always stick with me. And then at one point we went to France, near Colmar. It's a city. My grandparents always went there on a holiday for 50 years straight. Always the same house, same location. So after he passed away, we visited it. And on a random night, Well, my grandmother was with me there in the little house. She told me, Bas, when you're older adult, I have to tell you something about grandfather. So I'm like, alright, you know. But straight ahead I kinda had a feeling what it was about. It was probably about the war. And so yeah, from that moment on, my search pretty much started. And yeah, right now we're actually in the street where my grandfather and grandmother used to live, in the same little house. And that's this little house there. And well, I guess not a lot changed on the house. He still has the same windows in it, etc. And up here we have the Stationstraat. And after some reading, I read that after the liberation, many of the Dutch civilians, they were hunting down traitors or German collaborators. And that did not always go according to plan. And of course, a lot of these Dutch people were angry. So they would turn in their neighbors who collaborated, etc., etc. Also, many of these people still had guns, weapons from the war. So the BS, the Dutch, kind of say the new Dutch police after the war, Binnenlandse strijdkrachten, they went on to arrest these people. And in that street there, which is actually one street behind my grandfather's house, is where they tried to arrest women. Up here they were called stukas, so women who collaborated with the Germans or dated with the Germans. Anything that comes close to that. And her brother was at home, and he would not let them in. He would not let his sister be arrested. So they shot through the door, killing him instantly. And there are also stories about more arrests of these women. And the German soldiers, that was right after the liberation, they were still present in the city. And at one point, German soldiers saw how Dutch people in a rough way were arresting women. They were not fond with that. So in the fight or argument that happened, the Germans shot a 15-year-old kid. And so yes, these were the days right after the liberation here in Vlaardingen. So yes, from that moment on, when my grandmother told me that, I was really keen on getting more information. She handed me a small pocket knife from my grandfather, which looks periodically wartime. So it could well be that that actually was the knife that he had with him during the war. So that's very interesting. I got it with me. I'll show it to my father later this evening. And yeah, that's how I started collecting. Totally got my interest in World War II. Also with all the travels we made with my grandfather to France. That area, La Poutroie, Colmar. Lots of battles took place there. We always used to visit the grave sites there. The Americans, German graves. That area actually was German speaking in French. And my grandfather, his German was really good. He always used to listen to German radio, German television. Always when you were at his place, there was German things. Looking back, maybe he had his reasons for that. I don't know. It's a lot of gassing. I said, many of these people who went through the war did not want to talk about it. Whether they were good or bad. It really cut the society in half. And yeah, that's even in our family. I just found out today For example, the father from my mother's side got arrested. He was gonna be executed. In the end, he wasn't. And then the father from my father, where this episode is about, he was probably in the SS. They got married after the war. So you can imagine it's not a subject you want to talk about on a family birthday, because it can give a lot of trouble. So many people just prefer to not talk about it at all. Leave it in the past, which is very unfortunate because it is history in the end, and a lot of, well, important, interesting information got lost through that way. I mean, I would have so wanted to have interviewed my grandfather about his possible times during the war. Well, I guess some things never change. The football goals are still here. You always used to play soccer here, or football, how you call it, soccer in America, right? But turned out that at the location I was always playing soccer on the other side of the street. In one of these houses. During the war, people, they helped Jewish people to hide from the Germans. The people over there actually got awarded the Yad Vashem medal or something. So they are written down in Israel at the museum. Right now we're at Verbrugge Zeeplein. It's where the National Memorial takes place in Vlaardingen. So as a little kid I always used to go there, have a moment of silence. Right now we're standing at a former school, Dutch school at the Willem Beukelsonstraat, and I always used to walk past here when I was a little kid. You see this tree here. One time when the leaves were really low, I grabbed the leaf and I got, how do you say it, pinched by a bug, so my whole hand was swollen. Anyway, the building here is where I used to have gym, that one. So I spent my youth here. During the war, this building was used by the German army as a headquarters and possibly gym/training ground. After the liberation, the BS, the Dutch fighting force, took over this building, took office in here, and the Stuka's and other Dutch prisoners, collaborators who were arrested were sent here. Files are really interesting about that. As said, the women, all their hair got cut off. Not everybody was happy about that. Police in many cases tried to stop these actions from Dutch civilians, but they could not really stop it. So they took care that things did not completely run out of hand, because yes, civilians were angry. And things that happened here, for many cases, civilians would bring in people like, yeah, here, these are collaborators. The new Dutch government system and police was not really keen on that, because in many cases, these were, well, I'm not gonna say false reports, but like minor incidents, like, you know, they have, I don't know, made a trade with a German. Many cases from the women, they were dating a German, or things like that. They had worked for Germans. So in many cases this was not a criminal case. And the police here, in many cases when women were brought in, they were let free through the back door, like, hey, girls, do your thing, and we're not gonna prosecute you. Also the hair cutting, Vlaardingen, they tried to call a halt to that, which was very hard. So they said, like, okay, from now on these women or men could only be cut for medical reasons. So they said, okay, well, we got a medical reason, and they sent them to the hospital, local hospital here, not far away from here. And the nurses would cut these women. So it still happened in the end. It's just that the hospital helped a little bit with it for medical reasons. So yes, the story about my grandfather and how it evolved. Of course, when I grew more interested in World War II, I had these questions. So I would ask my father if he had any information about my grandfather. Did he say anything? Does he have items from the war? And it was all really minimum. As said, he also did not want to talk about it. The stories I did hear from my father, my mother, were a minimum, but it kind of got me on a track. My father told me that sometimes during dinner my grandfather would say some random things. At one point he was talking about that Russian women were really tough fighters. That meant that he was in hand-to-hand combat with Soviets. Also women, they had a lot of women fighting. And he survived, so you can imagine what happened to the other part. Also, there were stories my father told me about him having to flee for the Soviets. And while doing so, they had no time even to go to the toilet. Either it was too cold or the Soviets were advancing too fast. So people would just piss and shit in their pants. When they would find a dead soldier with clean clothes, they would switch it and move on, because yeah, the Russians were coming and stopping would be dying. And he somehow managed to be able to surrender to the Americans north of Berlin. And with that information you can kind of trace back the Dutch divisions. What happened with the Dutch who signed up for German service. The Wehrmacht itself was only for German soldiers. So if you were a foreigner, you could not join the Wehrmacht. And there were a lot of Belgium and Dutch volunteers signing up for the war, and they found out that their divisions were actually really solid. At first they were commanded by the Germans, but the Germans had some troubles with these lads. They were really stubborn, they didn't want to listen to the Germans. Same with the Belgians, by the way. So they said, you know what, fine, you stubborn guys, you can have your own division. Because they found out that they were actually good fighters, the Belgium and the Dutch, and they really proved themselves in many battles. One fine example is the battle for Narva, or Narva, if I pronounce it correctly. The Dutch and Belgians put up a very stiff resistance there to hold back the Russians so Germans could retreat. Adolf Hitler was so impressed by that he even made a special notation for the Dutch and the Belgians who fought there. So yes, most likely, at least with the information we got so far, he was either in, I believe, SS Division Nederlanden or Michiel de Ruiter. My father used to say that he did have shrapnel damage on his legs, my grandfather. So yes, with all this information you must conclude that he had been fighting. And so far that's the story that I have got and the information that I've got. It's not a lot. And we'll see what today will bring. If the story is correct, or maybe the story is completely different than what we have always thought. It's gonna be a real surprise, and I'm really excited about it, to to hopefully finally, well, not end this chapter, but have all the information that I was looking for. So we're gonna head to The Hague. I'm spending the night here in Vlaardingen. Tomorrow we're still gonna see some more World War II sites here in Vlaardingen. One is the prison camp they had. So apparently my father was in a prison camp in Vlaardingen. It was a big prison camp for Dutch collaborators. So I'm gonna tell a little bit more about it tomorrow, because it's a lot of traveling that I have to do here, a lot of locations I want to see and visit. So stay tuned, and now we're gonna go to Den Haag, dig into the files and hopefully find what we're looking for. Finally there at the National Archive, and curious what this will bring, if my grandmother was right or not. I still recall one memory after my grandfather passed away, after his what is it, burial, memorial. We were all sitting at the house, and suddenly my grandmother started to cry and totally trip out. She's like, oh yes, and grandfather, he brought a secret along with his grave, that he was a member of the NSB, that's the Dutch Nazi party, and everybody was kind of like shocked, like, oh, what are you talking about? And that was pretty much it, what she said about it. Very unfortunate. So hopefully today we can get these answers. So let's gonna have a look. Well, that was it. Just came back from the Dutch National Archives, and really interesting, the information I found. Yeah, did it change the story? Kinda, it did. It's a different story than what I knew from the information that was given me, and I still have some questions about it. I wonder in what way that the paperwork that I read are actually true. So these were police reports that were in the files, police investigations about my grandfather, and a lot of eyewitnesses stories about my grandfather, as he was being investigated after the war by the Dutch police. They also questioned people in his life, so there were notations from his father, some local friends, which was actually really interesting. Stories that I did not knew before. And also really cool was that there was a postcard from the end of 1945 or beginning 46, from my grandfather while he was in custody to his family. A very small note, really cool. He wrote it that he was imprisoned for indeed being working for the German army, and that he was a captive. He would not know when he would be free. His family would be able to write back to him. His request was, don't write too many stupid things. Really funny. and say hello to my girl. She knows who I am, he said. So that's like my grandmother. Back in the days when I heard all these stories about my grandfather being in the SS and people had an opinion about it. Like, yeah, your grandfather is bad, etc, etc. I'm like, well, after what he told me about not every German is bad, not every German a Nazi, I decided I'm gonna go to France to visit a good friend of my grandfather and grandmother. It's an old lady, used to be in the French resistance. And I thought if somebody has a good opinion about my grandfather, she would be the right person, because she knew him for like 40 years. So went backpacking to France. Didn't have a driver's license back then yet. I think I was like barely 18. And hitchhiked to France, knocked on her door, and didn't see her for like 10 years. So that was really interesting. And the first thing she showed me was an old wood carved painting that my grandfather once gifted my grandmother, and it was in her possession. And on that wood carving was the same poem that my grandfather wrote in 1940. So that was really interesting to see in France. That's also the place where I have these 105mm casings from. Show you a little reel about it right now. So yes, missing links, that I found them. I think I did. There's a lot more new information for me. Some confirmations also. Some things not what I had heard or understood. I have to question my father about that. Still first want to hear his stories before I share the information that was in the files. Maybe he can still enlighten me a little bit about that. So yes, super nice to be able to see all the files and just see a postcard from 1946, which is just in the archives of Dutch government. Really cool. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to take photos of that kind, so I was only allowed to make, what he said, writings. So I've got some notes with writings with basic information that I wanted to write down, places that he's been, where he served. And I got some addresses also, which I was not familiar with. So we're gonna go back to Vlaardingen, check out some news sites that I now have information from the files. Definitely gonna check out the flag site. And yeah, very interesting day, really cool. See the World War II history finally confirmed. So yes, my grandfather was in the German army. He was on battlefields. And the rest I will tell this evening. Well, here we are, another place of my youth. This is where we always used to go fishing with my father and grandfather. And you would think this is a normal water, but it's actually not. These were defenses that the Germans made. It was part of the big defenses of Rotterdam and the Hoek van Holland, Fortress Hoek van Holland. We made an episode about it. You can see it on our channel. So they dug these big waters to stop tanks coming from the beaches towards here. When my parents used to live in the blocks there, I believe my brother once almost drowned there in the water. And exactly at this location, guess what there was on the other side? Bunker! So yeah, this was a German flag position. Overlooking the areas here. Shooting down the planes coming from England. So yes, pieces of World War II history are also visible in Vlaardingen. And yeah, I don't know what kind of flag this was. I guess a pretty big one, 8.8. Might have to do some digging here in the area. Although I think it has been cleared up pretty much. Very interesting, especially considering the files I've just read about my grandfather. It has a connection to the flag, that's for sure. So that's super cool. And now we're gonna head down to Vlaardingen Port. That's where my grandfather worked from 1940 up to, I believe, at the end of December 1945. Then he signed up for the German army. Right now we're at the port of Vlaardingen, or you could say port of Rotterdam. So port of Rotterdam is pretty much not in Rotterdam, it's outside, along all the small villages towards the coast. And on the other side of the water, you can clearly see the oil tanks, etc. In 1940, these got bombed by Allied bombers, got completely destroyed. They had big cranes over there overlooking the water. And my grandfather always used to tell about how he would jump off the bombed cranes into the water and would go swimming, probably after work, because in this area he worked from 1940 up to the end of 1944. He signed up the 2nd or the 3rd of January 1945 for the German army. Apparently because he simply had no food, his family had no food. Keep in mind, he was 16 when he joined the German army. 16. So he was roughly 11 years old when he started working in the harbor, making money, earning bread. He did not finish his school. He went straight to work. I could read from the files from the government. His employee, he also made a statement that he was really stubborn. He was very hard to work with. He really had his own mind, his own way of doing things, and if he didn't like it, he just left, which he did in 1943. It was also in the papers. I was really surprised by it and kind of gave me a mirror, because I guess I can be like that too. I wonder who I've got it from. I guess my grandfather. In 1943, so he was roughly 14 years old, I guess. He decided to pack his bags up here and move 200 kilometers further into the Netherlands on his own. So he just packed his bag, he left the job here, and he went to Limburg. It's a province in the Netherlands. Apparently up there they had factories where they helped making the German war production, so making obstacles, bunkers, etc. He worked there for, I don't know, 2 months, and then police picked him up because his employee up here in the harbor had called like, hey, this guy's missing, and they traced him back to Limburg, and police came to pick him up because he was a minor and he was not just supposed to do these kind of things. And when he came back to his employee here, he asked, yeah, why did you leave? He's like, yeah, you're not paying me enough and I'm not getting enough food. Over there it was way better. So I guess that's where he got his first taste of the good life with the Germans. Because yeah, they got fed, they got paid, and if you got nothing, you gotta make choices in life. So at the end of 44, he made the decision, at least it's in the police report, to sign up for the German army because there was no food at home, no money, and if he went to work, he would take care of himself, his family would have less pressure with food and money. So he signed up. His father also made a citation in the records from police that he indeed was aware that his son had signed up, but he could not stop him anymore because papers were signed, even though he was still like 16 years old. So his father confirmed it and he said, okay, there's nothing I can do, so yeah, I don't like it, but go ahead. So yeah, he got boarded on Rotterdam with the train, went to Germany, and good luck, 16 years old. Another funny quote about his working conditions. After the war, he used to work at the Shell. Apparently he was a train driver there. And the working gear the guys at the factory had was not good anymore. It was ruptured, broken. So when there was a very big day, when all the directors from the factory came to the site, he decided it was a very good moment to make a good point for his colleagues. And while all the big bosses and directors were walking in the factory, my grandfather walked inside the factory with his safety hat on, his safety shoes on, and his knockblot, a piece of paper, and the rest he was butt naked. Of course the directors went full nuts on it, like, what is this guy doing? And he said, well, the uniforms we got are not good anymore, so I can might as well walk around the factory naked. And within one day the whole factory had new uniforms. So yeah, sometimes you have to be a little bit rude in life to arrange things and get stuff done. I guess my grandfather worked that out at a really young age. I guess just like me. I was 11 when I had my first job. Circle of life, I guess. The way you get older, the more you realize how much you look like your grandfather or your father. It's definitely, I've got his genes. He was ginger, I'm a ginger too, although it kind of faded. And some things definitely make a lot more sense after today. Still have a lot of questions about the stories I've heard from my grandfather about the war. So tonight I'm gonna ask some sharp questions to my father, see what we can get up from there, and maybe have a final conclusion on the case. Found a way to the hotel, and yeah, I really wanted to stay at this hotel. Why? Because apparently on this location there used to be a V1 rocket launch site in Vlaardingen. Yes, it is. Because over there you still see the big buildings, that's from Unilever. But during the wartime over there was a factory from Sunlight. And Sunlight is used to be a soap factory. They used to make a lot of materials. And guess what they produce there? It's a familiar one. Vim. Exactly. This is a German version. I've got them on my web shop. And over here you see Sunlight Gesellschaft AG. Yeah, of course I have to show you guys the room, but more specifically the view. It's great. Overlooking the port of Rotterdam, my hometown. And tomorrow see some more of the local World War II history here. Some more cool buildings with cool stories I gotta share with you. Tonight, first big interview with my father. I'm very curious about the things he found, what he thinks about the things that I found. Because yeah, the story I had in my mind was completely different. Then what I found out. So very interesting how that goes. I mean, yes, my grandfather, you know, he made the record at Dutch police, but if you have a choice saying that you served in Luftwaffe or in the SS, what would you do? Yeah. So, you know, he did not have any documents. Of course, they threw it all away. He said he did not do any fighting or shooting at airplanes. Could be, but how did you get shrapnel damage on your legs? At least that's what my father told me. And if you've not been into battle, you don't have shrapnel damage on your legs. So maybe he did a little bit of a lie there. Could be. If he did a good job. At 16 years old, you know, and he really knew what he was getting into.
God.
Ja, het wordt druk in nou, hè? Man. Nou ja, klaar voor?
Ja, ik ben er klaar voor, ja.
Well, welcome everybody. Special guest, my father, of course the son of my grandfather, what I told you guys about. And yeah, we do have some pets walking around, so if you see a dog or a kitty still, then you know what's going on. So yes, I went to the National Archive today. Got a lot of information there. But before I wanted to share that information, I first wanted to hear the stories from my father, the way I heard them when I was younger. The stories that he heard from his father. So yeah, enlighten us. By the way, he's gonna do it in Dutch. I'll make sure there will be subtitles at the bottom so you guys can understand everything. Yeah, Dad. Grandfather.
Oké.
Tweede Wereldoorlog.
Hier gaan we. Het verhaal van mijn vader is gebaseerd op de vertellingen die ik als jonge man, 16, 17-jarige, van hem heb gehoord. En wat hij heeft meegemaakt tijdens zijn verblijf in het Duitse leger. Waar hij als 14, 15-jarige jongen naartoe is gegaan. In verband met de economische situatie in hun huishouden. Weinig eten en er was eigenlijk helemaal niets. Niet zo'n goede verstandhouding ook met de ouders. En dat was eigenlijk ook de reden waarom hij toen vertrokken is. Hij heeft zich aangemeld en is voor zijn training naar Sudetenland gegaan. Waar hij een training heeft gehad van 6, 7 weken. En daarna met een andere grote groep Nederlanders vertrokken is uit Sudetenland richting het noorden van Duitsland, wat wij hebben terug kunnen vinden. Ze zijn ook ingezet tijdens gevechten, vermoedelijk tegen de Russen. En wat mij heel erg bij is gebleven is het verhaal dat zij een commandant hadden die eigenlijk een ongelooflijke, vervelende en nare man was. Ze zaten in schuttersputten en er kwam een Russische tank aan en die stopte bij het mondgat van die persoon en de tank begon te draaien en zodoende is deze persoon bedolven onder de druk van de rupsbanden en het zand wat erin is gegaan. De terugtocht in de regel heel erg chaotisch is gegaan. Douchen of je in ieder geval even kunnen wassen was niet meer aan de orde. Het was eigenlijk alleen maar lopen. Zorgen dat je munitie had. Het zij van gesneuvelde kameraden die je onderweg tegenkwam. Waar je dan de munitie of de wapens van mee kon nemen. En Ja, en wat er daar verder allemaal is gebeurd. Ik heb dan het stukje verhaal meegekregen dat hij samen met een Amsterdamse vriend uiteindelijk in Berlijn is gekomen. Die vriend van hem is achter de schoorstenen vandaan geschoten tijdens de gevechten met de Russen. Hij is daarna op de een of andere manier toch in Nederland terechtgekomen en dat is eigenlijk het verhaal waar het tot heden, wat mij eigenlijk bekend is geweest. Er is nooit echt veel over gesproken in de familie. Ik heb hem daar hooguit 2-3 keer over gesproken. En hij heeft ook gezegd van, joh Frans, je zou in mijn geval 2 kanten op zijn gegaan. Of de criminele kant, of in dit geval de goede kant. En gelukkig heeft hij wel voor de goede kant gekozen.
Ja,
dat is
een dubieuze kant, maar...
De dubieuze, het valt inderdaad niet,
het is,
niet, maar in de tijdgeest ook wel
Ja.
begrijpelijk.
Ja, zeker. Ik heb daar ook nooit moeite mee gehad. Misschien kun jij me daarmee helpen. Slapen, terugtrekken. Misschien laat je een lampje branden bij je.
Ik denk dat met het terugtrekken weinig is geslapen. Dat denk ik, want het ging natuurlijk in een moordend tempo, werden natuurlijk de Duitse legers overrompeld door de Russen. Dat ging natuurlijk heel erg snel. En het was natuurlijk chaos eerste klas. Treinvervoer was er niet meer. Dus alles moest te voet gaan gebeuren. Dus ze hebben heel wat afgewandeld, die mannen. Ja.
Zeker.
Wat hij ook zei, van, je kakte in je broek en je liep gewoon verder. Want tijd om even een bosje achter weg te duiken, dat was er niet. Ja, dat zijn de verhalen.
Ja, meer informatie hadden we niet.
Dit was het.
Ja.
Hier moesten we het inderdaad allemaal maar meedoen.
Dus ben ik inderdaad, eindelijk na 20 jaar iets op het spoor gekomen. Ik heb gezocht in de Duitse archieven, niks. Hij stond niet geregistreerd als soldaat in Duitsland. Wat misschien zou kunnen vanwege zijn leeftijd.
Ja.
Ik weet niet precies hoe dat allemaal werkt. Hij was minderjarig natuurlijk. Informatie gevonden. Hebben we het net ook al even over gehad. En ja, het bijzondere is eigenlijk dat maar deels aansluit bij wat je mij verteld hebt.
De verhalen, ja.
In de file stonden gegevens waar jij ook niet van op de hoogte was.
Klopt.
De files die we naar voren hebben kunnen halen, die bekend waren. Ik ga ze even proberen ze op een korte manier samen te vatten. Er stonden hele interessante anekdotes in. Nou, sommige wist jij ook nog niet.
Ja, klopt.
Op 31 augustus 1942 door de NSB opgepakt voor het dragen van een oranje W op de mouw. Die was bij jou niet bekend, geloof ik.
Zeker niet, nee.
So then, I'll put it in English quickly fast. So he got arrested for wearing an orange W in 1942 during the war, which is an anti-German signalation pretty much. So he got arrested by the Dutch Nazis. Also, together with friends in that same time span, they threw bricks through a cafe or bar that was, the owner was an NSB supporter. They did not get arrested for that, but his friend, who put after the war, put an, what is it? Verklaring, declaration about him. It was very clear written in there. 1942 up to 1945 he worked in the harbor. During that period he made a short break to Limburg when he was 14 years old.
Yep.
You also did not know that?
This was also new for me.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting. So he was 14 years old and he packed his bags and left to another company because he got paid more and he had better food. Uiteindelijk 3 januari 1945 in de gegevens, zijn verklaring bij de Nederlandse politie, is hij in dienst gegaan bij de Duitse Luftwaffe als Luftwaffe-helfer. Van daaruit is hij vertrokken inderdaad Sudetenland, omgeving Eger. Eger is een rivier. Hij heeft inderdaad verklaard 6 weken training te hebben gehad. Met plusminus 500 andere Nederlanders. Vanuit daar door naar Oldenburg. Dat is in de omgeving van Bremen gegaan. Daar kreeg hij een opdracht om een stuk geschut op te blazen met een kameraad. Dat hebben ze ook gedaan. En van daaruit moesten ze te voet verder. En uiteindelijk via een aantal kleine dorpen, Augusthausen, Vugels, Morsum, Duitsland gecapituleerd. Uiteindelijk bij Stadskanaal in de buurt van Groningen de grens overgekomen. Waar hij zich heeft gemeld bij een politiebureau. En daar waren zijn eerste verklaringen weer opgenomen. En dat is een heel ander verhaal als dat wij in ons hoofd hadden.
Dat kan je best wel zeggen.
Ja.
Ja.
Daar was ik ook verbaasd over.
Inderdaad, want het strookt totaal niet met het idee wat ik had.
Ja.
En de beeldvorming die ik ook had. Stadskanaal was voor mij helemaal nieuw. Ik kan me nog wel herinneren dat ik als kind zijnde een keer in een Stadskanaal ben geweest. Maar bij wie? En hoe, wat en waarom? Maar nu is er weer een stukje duidelijkheid van, ik denk dat hij op bezoek is geweest bij mensen waar hij of heeft ingewoond of misschien wel bij heeft gewerkt. Ja. Na zijn terugkomst in Nederland.
Ja.
Ja, en dan hebben we natuurlijk ook nog het verhaal van de vergulde hand.
Uiteraard.
Waar die ook naartoe is gegaan, omdat daar alle foute mannen, jongens die in Duitse dienst hebben gezeten, uit deze regio werden daar geplaatst. Hoe lang hij daar heeft gezeten is mij ook onbekend, maar ik weet wel, hij is daar wel geweest en van daaruit naar een jeugdtehuis in Rotterdam.
Wat vind je ervan, nu jij deze informatie vandaag voor het eerst dan hebt gehoord?
Het overviel me.
Ja?
Ja, toch wel, want je hebt een bepaald beeld in gedachten. En dat beeld dat moet je nu gewoon helemaal bijstellen. Een beeld wat ik van jongeman tot nu, tot mijn bijna 67 jaar bij me heb gedragen. Dat beeld dat wordt nu anders. Het wordt scherper, laat ik het dan zo even zeggen. En meer gedetailleerd, omdat je nu een bepaalde route zou kunnen volgen. En ook de dingen uit mijn jeugd, waar ik ben geweest met mijn ouders. Stadskanaal is daar natuurlijk een goed voorbeeld van. Ik denk van ja, wat moet je in zo'n uithoek? Maar nu is het duidelijk waarom hij terug is gegaan naar het Stadskanaal.
Kijk jij nu anders naar zijn oorlogstijd met deze informatie?
Nee, pertinent niet. Nee, het is een aanvulling op de dingen die we eigenlijk al wisten, maar nu wat meer in details.
Ja, precies. Want ja, de informatie die wij wisten, dat heb je mij eerder ook verteld, vandaar ben ik gaan werken. En in al deze verslagen en papieren wordt dat totaal niet vermeld. En dat is heel vreemd. Er wordt maar 1 gevechtshandeling in vermeld, het opblazen van een kanon, en dat is het.
Ja.
Alle verhalen die hij vroeger heeft verteld aan een keukentafel zijn hier niet in terug te vinden. Ik denk dat het een keuze is geweest van hem om dat bewust niet te vertellen. Wat is jouw gedachtegang daarover?
Ja,
Het is jouw vader, jij kent hem.
ja, ik denk niet dat het een keuze is geweest om bepaalde dingen niet te vertellen. Ik denk dat hij inderdaad wel heeft verteld wat hij op dat moment wilde vertellen. En daarna is het boek voor hem ook weer dicht gegaan. Het zijn misschien een paar bladzijden die hij mij verteld heeft.
Ja.
En dat was, wat ik ervan heb begrepen, was best wel heftig.
Zouden de zwarte bladzijden
Dat
geweest
zouden
zijn?
de zwarte bladzijden
Die
geweest
hierin
kunnen zijn
ontbreken.
die hierin ontbreken.
Ja.
Inderdaad, ook omdat er bepaalde mensen wel werden geselecteerd om naar het front te gaan en hij niet, door zijn leeftijd, maar hij was wel in één keer verdwenen.
Klopt, inderdaad. We hebben een aanleiding van de informatie in de documenten. Terwijl ik het aan het lezen was, kwam ik een bepaald gek stuk tegen. Alsof hij in herhaling viel tijdens zijn politieverhoor. Het was een verhoor, crimineel verhoor. Ik was het al aan het lezen en hij vertelde dat dus op een gegeven moment op het kamp werd er een selectie gemaakt voor frisse jonge mannen, sterke mannen, zelfverzekerde mannen werden eruit gepikt. En mijn opa verklaarde dat hij niet wist waarom. Ik denk dat je heel erg moet zoeken van de sterkste werden eruit gepikt voor de final battle, om het zo even te zeggen. En vanaf dat punt in de verslagen beschrijft hij eigenlijk alleen dat hij schoenen heeft gepoetst, huizen heeft schoongemaakt van een Duitse commandant, boerderijwerkzaamheden, eigenlijk volledig normaal burgerwerk.
Ja, in een oorlogsgebied.
In een oorlogsgebied, in de eindstrijd, terwijl heel Duitsland in puin ligt. Ik heb er zo mijn bedenkingen bij. Maar dat houdt voor mij wel in dat ik nog meer kan onderzoeken.
Je bent er nog niet klaar mee.
Ik ben er nog niet klaar mee, nee. Ik had gehoopt dat ik het vandaag het verhaal compleet kon krijgen. Maar
De cirkel is nog niet rond.
hij is nog niet rond, inderdaad. Heb ik nog 1 of 2 vragen voor je?
Is goed, barst maar los.
Hij ligt misschien heel erg voor de hand liggend, maar denk je dat het jouw vader heeft beïnvloed hoe hij voor de rest in zijn leven was als persoon?
Ik denk het wel. Ja.
Als in simpeler, makkelijker met dingen omgaan? Of?
Hij kon heel erg makkelijk omgaan met situaties. Ik denk wel dat die periode die hij daarheen heeft meegemaakt, plus natuurlijk de periode, de vooroorlogsperiode, wat natuurlijk al niet helemaal tof was in Nederland wat betreft de economische situatie, dat hem dat wel gevormd heeft in de mens zoals hij altijd is geweest. Ja, dat denk ik wel.
Ja, ik lees wel duidelijk uit de verslagen dat hij redelijk resoluut was in zijn beslissingen.
Behoorlijk.
Al voordat hij naar de front ging.
Ja. En dat is eigenlijk altijd wel zo gebleven.
Ja, precies. Waarschijnlijk ook een enorm voor de hand liggende vraag. Heeft dit invloed gehad op jouw moeder? Ze zijn hoe lang samen geweest? Ze hebben elkaar vanaf de oorlog eigenlijk, hè?
Voor de oorlog kenden ze elkaar al. Ja, dat was echt tot de dood hun scheid.
Ja,
dat is inderdaad... Ik heb mijn moeder eerlijk gezegd er nooit over gehoord.
Ze misschien voorzichtiger was, terughoudender met bepaalde dingen.
Nee, ook niet. Mijn moeder die hield wel van gezelligheid en dergelijke. En dat heeft ze ook echt wel gedaan. Dus die was echt wel voor een feestje te porren.
Ja.
Daarentegen was mijn vader wat behoudender. Die ging niet zo makkelijk even een kopje koffie ergens drinken. Want die zei dan altijd, voor die 2 gulden heb ik een pak koffie. En dat was mijn vader ook alweer ten voeten uit. Maar ik heb nooit aan mijn moeder echt kunnen merken van, joh, zij heeft daar last van. Nee, totaal niet. Het was zoals het was. Ja. En de mensen hebben gewoon hun leven geleefd.
Denk je dat het jou heeft beïnvloed, jouw jeugd, jouw latere leven?
Nee, het heeft mij niet beïnvloed. Het speelt af en toe wel eens op. Dat je denkt van, hé, weet je wel, 16 jaar. Als ik dan nu kijk naar de jeugd van de 16-jarige. En ik zet het af tegen een 16-jarige die de oorlog ingaat. Dan denk ik, ja, weet je wel, wat een wereld van verschil. Dat wel.
Iets minder zelfstandig denken.
Veel minder zelfstandig denken, ja, inderdaad.
We zaten net met je vrouw aan tafel.
Ja.
En ik vroeg je eerder, ja, heeft het jou in jouw leven beïnvloed? Je zei daarop nee. Maar zij vertelde dat toen je haar ontmoette, dat je wel iets moest vertellen over opa.
Ja.
Dat strookt niet.
Nee, dat klopt ook wel. Het zijn natuurlijk ook wel situaties. Je loopt er niet mee te koop.
Wanneer heb je Vera leren kennen?
20 jaar geleden. We zijn
20 jaar geleden.
Ja, 20 jaar geleden.
Zo zijn we dan 65 jaar.
Ja.
Dat is ruimer, maar dat geeft niet.
Ja, precies.
Die soort die erop.
Maar dan vond jij het toch belangrijk genoeg?
Ja, om het ook aan Veer te vertellen. En ik kan me geen eens meer herinneren hoe we op dat gesprek kwamen. Maar ja.
Vroeg je je af of dat zij het ergste vinden of niet?
Nee, dat heb ik me eigenlijk nooit afgevraagd. Nee, dat niet. Het is gewoon in spontaniteit dat dit ook gewoon verteld is.
Ja.
Dat was het.
Bedankt voor het delen van de informatie.
Graag gedaan.
Top.
Toppie.
See you guys tomorrow morning. Good morning. Yeah, mornings are always hard. It's kind of foggy up in Vlaardingen, but no, I had a good sleep after all the news and talks from last night. Today, gonna go to the former concentration camp here, where my grandfather was interned, imprisoned for a while, along with roughly 500 people a day, other people from all over the Netherlands. So collaborators, assessors, they all went there, awaited trial, etc, etc. Conditions were not that good there, so lots of stories to tell. We're at a location now where after the war German prisoners were kept. These were collaborators, assessors, everybody who has worked with the Germans in these areas here, the cities around it. They were put in the school. The school used to be a Wehrmacht barracks during the war. And after the war, for 1.5 years, it became kind of like a prison. Until the camp de Vergulde Hand was built. That's where we're gonna go next. Right after the war, stories are that this building here was totally ravaged by the soldiers. So it first needed some cleaning for the prisoners to be able to be taken captive here. And there are some funny stories about it. One of them is that at one point the price came and he gave like small mini Bibles to the prisoners here. And a week later the prison guards went to the price and they said, well, look what they done to the holy word. Turned out that the men sitting here, they did not have rolling paper. So they used the very thin papers of the Bible to roll their tobaccos in. Also less nice stories. This is a case where prisoners after the war were being chained up. Specifically the men who were fighting, who had a weapon. During the war, they were chained up, etc, etc. These chains actually have been preserved. They're also in the Dutch National Archive. Because yeah, as soon as the Dutch government learned about it, they were not so keen on it. They thought it was too brutal. Prisoners, they had leg wounds from the chains, etc, etc. So they built the camp the Vergulde Hand. That's where we're gonna go now. That's where my grandfather was imprisoned. And possibly he was also here. It's very unsure. I did read up about the prisoners here. At one point, guards got a signal that one of the prisoners was writing a book about the war and about the small prison here. They did not like that, but before they had a chance to ask him about it, he already had heard rumors that there were troubles coming up. So he went to them and said, guys, I'm not writing a book, I'm just writing poems about the war. I'll show you, but keep in mind, they can be kind of rough. One of them was a very anti-Soviet poem about Stalin wanted to take over Europe, destroy the culture here, etc., etc. In which they actually had a point, because many soldiers, they, especially the Dutch, Belgium too, joined to fight the Soviets, not because they were Nazi or something like that. No, they were really fighting Stalin, the Soviets, and their oppressive regime. And yeah, it's kind of weird that 80 years later, we're still fighting the Soviets on the same battlefields as in World War II, where these veterans also fought. It's a very double situation, to be honest. So yeah, Vlaardingen has a lot of World War II history. Right now we're gonna go find the camp where my grandfather was imprisoned, or at least the grounds, because not much is preserved of it. Well, at the location from the internment camp Vergulde Hand, it was one of the many camps in the Netherlands that after the war they housed bad Dutch people, so anybody who collaborated with the Germans. They got trialed, etc., etc. In the end, not many people got convicted, besides the really big crimes, right? Many people were also, could say, like wrongly imprisoned, for example, making trades with the Germans, I don't know, selling bread or potatoes, things like that, anything to survive pretty much. And after the war, people were really easy on reporting their neighbors and things like that. So yeah, in many cases police did nothing with it, they were just, you know, whatever, you know, people tried to survive during the war. Yeah, the location of the camp, there's not much left. The only thing standing here is the old farm, which is here. The camp itself was behind here. It's currently, I believe it's a building site to house refugees, Ukrainian refugees actually. There's not even a memorial plaque, nothing to find about this camp. Not many pictures also. There are many drawings, I'll show you here in the video. During the highlights of the camp, roughly 500 prisoners a day were here. Conditions were not that bad actually. They had a lot of freedom to organize things, small sports, games, watching movies. Many of these movies were also, for example, American made, about the concentration camps. So they did kept in mind to have a little bit of education, re-education. Of course, with the Soviet danger, which happened after World War II, they were really afraid that people would turn into a socialist scum, to say it like that. So yeah, they were really trying to treat the prisoners in a good way, so they would not reject the current society, so they could reintegrate, which in generally worked pretty much. The movies the prisoners saw here about all the concentration camps, massacres that happened, really they were impressive to many of them. There were also many escape stories. One story is that one of the prisoners, he actually sort of kind of like a tunnel underneath the gate. So I guess, yeah, it would be fenced off in that direction. And he was able to duck somehow a tunnel and up on that side of the dike and over there, jump in the water, and gone he was. Yeah, the treatment of prisoners, as said, in general it was good, but reality was a lot of bad things indeed happened. Many of the guards, they were actually former prisoners from Buchenwald. Buchenwald, of course, a notorious camp, you heard about it. So they really put the Buchenwald regime into action back here. They turned around the table a little bit. So soldiers, they had to wear numbers actually on the heart. The saying is that they did that because in case something happened, the guards, who were not that good in shooting, had a good aiming sight at the prisoners. Yeah, strange stuff. So yeah, the treatment at some points was not that good, and I believe in '48 the camp was definitely closed because of pressure from the government. They just did not really like the whole situation. Just with other camps, people had to, you know, get back their lives and move on. So yeah, the story of the camp. My grandfather was here. He arrived here for, I believe, February '46. That's pretty late, many months after the war. He somehow was in Germany for a very long time, even when the war ended. That's why I think the story he put on the papers was not really correct. As said, we had a small gap of some weeks, 10 or 12 weeks, where in the police file he said he was pretty much just doing dishes and brushing shoes for German Oberfeldwebels and things like that. But yeah, if I hear the stories from my father, who is really keen on, yeah, this is true, he was not lying about that. It just doesn't match the story. So he had been up to a lot more, at least, than what he told police, which is not strange. You don't want to go to the police and say, hey, I was in the SS, because then your imprisonment would be a lot rougher. And yeah, I said my grandfather was not a Nazi. You could clearly see that in the witness reports, also from police. Statesmen are really clear about that. Also, he got arrested during the war by the NSB with the orange letter on his arm, threw in windows from NSB, fellow Dutch Nazis. So yeah, he really joined up to survive, to get food. So that his family would have more food. Also, the statements from his father confirmed that, and we were surprised about it, especially my father, because the story always was my grandfather had a very bad home, 4 kids. His father was away a lot, and when he was home he was drunk, and at one point he somehow threw a wooden axe with, of course, a steel pointed tip towards my father, and yeah, that probably was his last drop of convincement, like, okay, I gotta get out of here, I gotta sort my life out for myself. And yeah, he left, he packed his bag with 16 years old and went to sign up with the Germans. Hard to imagine, right? 16 years old and doing all that stuff. But different times, different people, different educations, society, a lot has changed. So yeah, the camp where my grandfather was, really weird. And yeah, my grandmother was really, how do you say it, scared about, even after all these years, she was like, when he passed away, still crying, like, oh, I got a secret to tell you guys about grandfather, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that really, I guess, left its mark. Said also in the chat last night with my father, It was really funny that his wife told me that when they met, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that was one of the first things he said, like, hey, but you gotta know that my grandfather did some things in the war. What? You're 80 years down the line, right? What does it matter? So yeah, that's the reason why I'm also here, right? Third generation, and still keeps us busy. These war histories and all the stories, and really intriguing. So yeah. Right now we're at Geuzen, one of the memorials in Vlaardingen about the resistance fighters that got murdered in 1941. These are their graves. Said before, this was the first big group to get executed. Waalsdorper Vlakte. And a monument about the Dutch Indies. It's 1945, 1950. That's they wanted independence, and the Dutch still fought there. That's in the Dutch Indies, that's very far away. Many old veterans from World War II, Dutch guys, fought for the Germans, came back. As you know, they were not really welcomed. So in 1945 they packed their bags again, and this time they went fighting for the Dutch in the Dutch Indies. Of course, these men had seen a lot already, so lots of atrocities happened in the Dutch Indies, and the Dutch eventually lost the war. The country became independent. Long story, different war. But yeah. So yeah, story of my grandfather. I had hoped that going to the archives, all my questions would have been answered, but that's not the case yet. Pretty much summed all together what we know so far is that 16 years old, 3rd of January 1945, my grandfather signed up for the German army. Within 1 or 2 days he was on a train towards Eger in Sudetenland for a 6-week training session along with 500 other Dutch men, mostly all from this area. What I believe it was the last shipment of men for the Division Nederlanden, like the Dutch Volunteer Legion for the Germans. Of course, I've got the stories from my father that he recollects very well. These stories have not changed in 20 years. I checked it up. About my grandfather indeed having to pull back shit in his pants. He fought with Russian women. They were really tough. He once told my father, hand-to-hand combat he had. So his, what was it, lieutenant or higher ranking officer being squashed by a Russian tank. His body got shot up behind the chimney. And the part about his body we could find back in the files. There was a mention about it, that he lost a friend somewhere. But yeah, he lost him along the way. He did not say he got shot up, but you can somewhat connect the pieces to it. And yeah, already when I was reading his file at the archives, I noticed that everything was really specific until a certain moment. There was a moment that he said he met Feldwebel, or a higher ranking German officer, who took them along again. And I think from that point on, until the point of almost surrender to the Americans. He filled that in with basic works like cooking, brushing shoes for the Germans. But yeah, if you have these stories from my father, which were directly told to him when he was younger, it just doesn't match up. In his files he said he did not saw any fighting action, he never had a gun in his hand, never shot at airplanes with his 2 centimeter flak. I highly doubt that, to be honest. I think he just saw it as a way of escaping possible punishment when he would come back in the Netherlands. Of course, people would not be happy if you would say you have fought in the SS and killed people. You would get a higher punishment, a rougher treatment. So I think he left that part kind of blank. Because we got a gap from like 10 weeks, 10, 12 weeks. And he was in Eger, that's almost like eastfront. Then he was sent all the way back to almost the Netherlands. It just doesn't add up, it doesn't make sense. So that part is unknown yet. But I've got more specific dates and places. So it gives me a lot of more leads to find out where the Dutch divisions went to. And then hopefully I can connect the dots a little bit more. But yes, he did serve in the German army for sure, according to his official records in a flak regiment. It could also be in the SS Panzer flak regiment, of course, because the Dutch, they had brigades. They consisted of certain units, also flak units. So it's like you're saying the truth, you're just not saying everything. So you're not lying, you just leave a bit out. And I'm pretty sure he did that. He was 16 years old. And yeah, just I found it really strange that I found no records in Germany about it. Did all the official requests. Maybe that's because he was, one, a minor, and two, it was late war. There were only like 5 or 6 months left. So possibly got lost in the records, or records got destroyed. Could also be the case. So yes. How do I feel about it? Well, finally a confirmation of what we thought. It's really strange to really read it in the records. My father also recalled that he was able to get a German war pension, but he denied it, he didn't want it. He wanted nothing to do with it anymore after the war. I guess for him it was a terrible chapter, I'm pretty sure. And when I was younger, I think 18 years old, and all these stories came up. People had opinions about it. My grandfather, people that did not knew him. And the question was he good or bad? And I thought like, yeah, only one woman can answer that question, and that's Margriet in France. Traveled there. Yeah, she just told me, boss, your grandfather was a good man, he just did everything to survive during the war. We all did. And people from nowadays cannot judge unless they've been in the war themselves and have experienced things like that. Only then you can judge the suffering from somebody else or the action people do. Just keep in mind, it was like 80 years ago, propaganda was big. Even nowadays it's still big and people still fall for it. So imagine back then, right? No television and just radio. And yeah, I think he did somewhat have a connection with Germany. Possibly because of that. That's what my father also said. There was always German music playing in home, watching German television. Traveled to France, German speaking part. So yes, I'm pretty sure it always kept him busy. Besides that, he had a pretty sober life. He never had excesses. Never crazy things. He just wanted his meat, his potato and vegetables in the evening, and he was a happy man. No changes. Everything the same. Every year the same. Guess it drove my grandmother crazy. She wanted to see the world, but my grandfather just didn't let it happen. I think he drove the same car, same type of car for like 40, 50 years, a Peugeot 306. Every time my grandmother wanted a newer car, and so she would write postcards. Back then it was postcards. And, my grandfather to buy cars or for new houses, requests. My grandfather said, sure babe, I'll help you, I'll put it in the mail for you. Well, I can tell you, all those cards, they all went down the bin. Nasty bugger he was. So yeah, they lived in the same house for 40, 50 years. Not gonna say my grandmother was a captive, but you know, they've always been together their whole life. Why make things difficult, right? And yeah, it was funny to see that my father still was disaffected by everything. So even 80 years later, you know, people still kind of worry about it, think about it, and are afraid to even talk about it. And that's really weird for me. But I guess we're a different generation. We look back at things differently. We know that not every German was a Nazi. We now know that. But back in the days, it's not even thinking about that for many people. But we know the stories, you know. Many Germans saved lives and they were just part of a bad regime. Can't blame the simple man for the things that people on the top do. You just have to follow orders, and back then if you didn't do it, or you could be sent to the gulag or a camp or whatever. So people had not much choice, just to follow the line. Others say you will always have a choice. Yeah. Some people like to take a little bit more risk in life than others. So yes, still got a lot of research to do, I guess. Trying to really pinpoint these missing weeks, where he was. I do now have village names. Place he surrendered near Bremen. So I've already got a new road trip ahead. Gonna visit all the places he went to in Germany. Find a trace. Well, that's gonna be hard, but it's just that now I know these places. I wanna walk them. I wanna kind of see what he saw when he was there. Find these places and just, yeah, contemplate about life, I guess. So yes. Suddenly you're like, your family is a part of the World War II history that you're collecting. It's really strange. I kind of knew it already, but now it's really, I saw it on paper, you know, his conviction, and it's really, he served, you know. And yeah, guess I'm gonna call it a day. If anybody has any more information about Vlaardingen, the history, feel free to share it in the comments. Subscribe, like, much appreciated, all the work we put in there. And the more information we share together, the more we know. And for now, I'm gonna call it a day. I would like to thank everybody for watching this part of my life and my family history in World War II. Yeah, the question I started with, was my grandfather in the SS? I think yes. I think my father also thinks yes. It's just not officially in the records. But yes, he for sure fought for the German army. And yeah, he was kind of a bad boy adventurer, that's for sure.